my second conversation. It's a pleasure as always with my friend Randall Carlton Green. All right, welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. I was reading another book that I had a guest that was supposed to be on, and I was reading that first. And I try to like read 2 books at a time.
Always.
But I feel like I read enough comic books that I'm just gonna that's gonna be one of my books.
True. Well, you have to break it up. You can't always do. I'm reading Pride and Prejudice, slow roll, and on the side I'm reading a baseball book, and then I read some other one. You have to have multiple. I also read once that if you read more than one book, it helps enhance your memory.
Yeah.
Fights dementia down the road. Things like that.
Yeah. Well, I'll use that as an excuse though, I guess. I don't know. I felt like maybe like with the time crunch, so I stopped reading that other one, and I was like, I want to finish this book before he comes over.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all. But that's the same with any book for me. I'll be reading the 2, and then midway through, it's like, all right, game's over. Let's finish whichever book it is. So I think that happens frequently.
Have you ever like stopped reading a book?
I know that's an interesting thing. Many people.
I barely ever do that.
I can't.
Fuck it.
I can't because I think it sets a bad precedent.
I'm finishing this game. I bought the ticket. I'm taking the ride.
Exactly. I read article. There was some article that said how to read more books this year, and it was the advice. One of the advice given was, don't finish your books. I'm like, well, that's kind of counterintuitive. Number one, and
it doesn't count then.
I just think more importantly, I think it sets a bad precedent, a bad habit. Like if you always start giving up on books when you dislike it.
There's going to be other things you're going to give up on.
That, number one. But 2, you might be missing out on a great book that started slow. And
I know. I just got... There's supposed to be a Swamp Thing series coming to the DC streaming. And for B-rated, I wanted to... Also, I know Alan Moore, who's kind of like a legend of comic book writers. He's a little bit more adult. He has a Swamp Thing series. But I wanted to go back to like the golden age of Swamp Thing. Like it was the fucking worst thing I've ever read. Like even on comic book standards, I fucking I would go like 2 or 3 days in between each issue. I was like, fuck, I don't want to go back to it, dude. Yeah. It's so fucking bad. And I did it. I finished it. I got through it. It was like 300 pages of like horrible comic book.
Yeah, I just read one recently that was along the same lines. I didn't quit reading it. I didn't stop, but I skimmed the last few. It was Passenger to Frankfurt by Agatha Christie.
Okay.
Great novelist, but this one was just. I think she was 80 when she finished it. It was just. It went nowhere. It was rough. And I felt so bad though not finishing it. I felt because I think it just sets a bad precedent of not finishing things. But once again, thank you for having me back. My goal is I was driving over. I said, I want to be the most frequent visitor on your podcast.
Right on. And I was even thinking about like what we could talk. You and I could talk about anything.
I know we can. I know, and that's why I wasn't worried on the way in. I reached out to you this time to come back because when we did this right around September, August of last year, and I know it wasn't put up until December. I wanted to come back because it's when you always talk about I'm writing a book. Everybody's writing a book, right? Everybody's writing a book. Your plumber has got a script, and everybody's got a book and a podcast and so forth. So when someone says I'm writing a book, it's just like, oh, cool, that's awesome. But did you follow up? So I wanted to come back to be like, hey, I did it, finished it, and but enough of that, and then I want to come back again after the next one's finished.
Yeah.
And then keep
going.
Well,
I made this. I was thinking about this earlier today. I was like, I'm probably like a year away from finishing mine. Like I'm months away from finishing the manuscript, and then the editing process. Like doing one quick make sure that all the story threads are there before I send it to somebody else to edit. Because I don't want to I need to know every angle, every sentence in that, every thread in the book before I send it out. Because if I have a question before I send it, then anything that person goes to correct, if they're like, what is going on here? I'm going to be like, I don't fucking know.
Exactly.
So I think I'm hoping that I'm a year away from published, hey, will you read my book?
I think it's important to have that goal of a timeline, but then you once asked me, I think last fall, you asked me how close I was finished, and I'm like, well, my initial goal was November, and then it was December when I was talking to you, so it does get pushed back. So the only problem with creating those deadlines is we are easily changing them.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I just started the first of my last 3 chapters.
Okay.
And the chapters are getting significantly shorter.
Well, do you write every day?
No.
Okay.
I write a few times a week.
Well, then once you change to write every day, your deadlines will
just melt away.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest success part of this. I was writing casually. I was like, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. I told everybody they wanted to listen, and people didn't want to listen. I'm writing a book. And then it wasn't until when I met someone else who'd written one, so a local guy, Eric Schellenberger, and he wrote one. And I said, hey man, how many pages? What's your word count? And my word count was higher than his. And I went home that night and I thought, wow, if his is published already, that means theoretically I have the book. And then from that day on, I made it a point. I said, that's it. Let's just write every day. Let's just kick everything else, all the other habits out, and I started writing every day.
Right on.
And I doubled my word count in a month. So the previous 11 months word count, I did it all within a month. And it was just one of those things. It's like, let's just get this done. Let's just do it. Let's just do it.
So let me finish this thing, because I do have a point to what I'm talking about in my book. Is that one? I was like, what if I had it done on March? I have two goals for next year: March 1st, 2020, or September 27th, 2020. March 1st would be the anniversary of the day that we started the bike ride, and September 27th would be the day which we ended the bike ride. Okay. So that's my goal. Those are my 2 dates that I'm working towards. Yeah. And the reason why I even brought that up, because I was thinking today, is like, what if I had Randall come on and he conversational interviews me about my book for an episode?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Hopefully by then you'll introduce me as multiple books written. Back
for the 7th time.
I'm hoping. I'm working on 2 projects, and it's fun. And I actually just recently this week I went to a career day at a high school, and I spoke to classes about being a writer. And they said, tell us about your day as being a writer. I go, well, I go to the gym, and then I say, okay, after the gym, I'm going to start writing at 12 o'clock. I get back at 12 o'clock. I put on Rick and Morty.
I got a shower. I don't want to write clean.
Yeah, I go look on Google Flights for something for about an hour or so. Then I read, and then I'm gonna new deadlines. I'm gonna start writing at 3. Well, the 3 comes by, then I get hungry, so I go. So I joked about just the process of a writer is just the crippling self doubt and the always pushing. What would be great today? Instead of writing, I am going to fold all my sheets, or iron all my whatever,
everything that you
iron my winter jackets and it's April and I don't need them, but something like that. That I kind of joked about that, but. Yeah.
That's my pre before they're in the closet iron, and then we got to iron them again.
You find anything else to do other than writing? You find anything else to do?
I don't know if I brought this up the last time, but a process that I have, yeah, she just hates people.
Well, the reason I like cats the best is that a dog walks by, it'll immediately come up to you and be like, I need attention. Needy. I don't care. A cat, me as a new person in the house is like, the hell with this guy. I don't care.
Well, we just went to go feed her, and as soon as she heard the doorbell, she's like, fuck this.
Yeah, I heard you say that. Yeah.
So now she's like, all right.
That's what intrigues me about him. He's like, hey, I want to give you attention.
he's not a threat. I can go back to eating food comfortably.
Exactly.
When I write, I feel like a heaviness on my chest, like a weight, and sometimes my throat clenches up. Do you have any physical tells that shows that is mental anxiety manifesting itself physically in your writing process?
Well, I don't yet, but I'm sure now after you telling me that, I will create one. But no, but it is just amazing the highs and lows emotionally you go through. I'll write something, I'll email it over to my mom, and I'm the next whoever. And then the other days it's like, why am I even doing this? This is stupid. You're not a writer. It's amazing the highs and lows emotionally. You mentioned about reviews on Goodreads and Amazon. I thought about this earlier today, is that those are part of the things that help you sell more books and become more well known. In fact, one of my favorite books, Nightingale, the reason I found that was it was so highly rated on Goodreads. It was 4.5, which on there that's in the upper 99 percentile. And you need to have those reviews, but then you're also victim to them, because if one day you get that negative one, which you will, you're going to get one, of course. It can be crippling, and it could be, it's the same on any of them. And it's the same with the sales too. I'll look at my sales on the charts, and it's like, hey, that's awesome, I sold this many books, and then the next day if you don't sell one or something, it's just like, this is stupid, why am I even trying? And it's you gotta stay even keel. It's amazing because I realize our success, a lot of it is determined by what other people think. And I mean, that's not why you should write. It's not why I write.
When it comes to financial and commercial success.
Yeah. When it comes to viewing, it's you're total reliant on other people.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So.
Yeah, and you're also having to like advertise for it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Which I've done minimal. I've kind of slow rolled on that. But
so one of the things that I know about you, you are probably like one of the most amazing list writers I've ever known. Like any of those like stupid lists that come up on Facebook that say like, are you this, are you this, are you this? Like you kind of put them to shame because you have like a list on music, you have like a list on movies, you have a list on favorite directors, list on books you've read in the year. And you even like, if I remember correctly, you're big into like trying to learn like a new word every day, if not like a couple a week, and then using them.
Well, I
feel like that's something like we talked about, or at least something that you said that
you and I have talked about it all the time. I mean, I have it on an app that's sent to me every day.
Yeah.
The dictionary.com app. But yeah, I list everything. I know I've jokingly said I want to be on the B-rated podcast to go over my best director list, which is like a 30-page manuscript at this point that I renew every year and I update it, and it's almost like a college football ranking system.
You would have to do early Saturday mornings.
All
right.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, DJ and Reed?
Yeah. Let's do it. I mean, I'm sure it's probably not do it for a while because you're gonna have plenty of content starting now. You're gonna have plenty. You don't need to hear me talk about directors. You're gonna have plenty. So come September when maybe there's more of a lull in the
right on
movie and TV world. Yeah.
So and the thing that I noticed though is like you even had some words in here that I was like, motherfucker, I gotta go through.
Thank you.
I gotta go to my dictionary
and
see what that would.
Thank you.
I kind of like in like what you're talking about and the structure of the sentence. I kind of like got what like I had the idea, but I was like, let me just make sure because I've never heard of this before. I don't consider myself like I mean, I am a high functioning moron, but I'm not an idiot. Does that make sense?
You're high functioning. That was the goal. I always strive to come across as close to intellectual as I can. Even if I am or not, if I'm not, it doesn't matter. But that was definitely a goal in the writing, was the thesaurus, all that, and I'm big on word choice, not using the same word in the same sentence and things like that. So it was a big time. That was a big part of the editing process, was just going through finding out what was my most used word.
Mm-hmm.
There was one word, I won't even mention which ones they are. One word I used something like 500 times, and I was just shocked. I'm like, this is way too much. My mom was like, well, in 50,000 words, that's not bad. I go, it's still too much. And I got it down to 130. And that's where a lot of the diversity of the word choice is, just because you got to focus on things like that.
Yeah.
Because we have you asked if I had a physical thing that I do. No, but we all have our tendencies to write certain words or phrases.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I had a lot of.
And I just thought about that because I constantly bring up mental health and suicide awareness in my book, or bicycle, or tour.
Yeah, and especially when you're talking about a certain thing, and how many times are you going to say like the word tourist? You have to, I used topography at one point when you're exploring a different place's topography. After a while, you have to get inventive. But then there's some words you're not going to be able to change. Like you just got to deal with it, and you know that because it's a book on travel that people are not going to be like, man, he's used the word travel so many times. Like,
Well, that's just like a given.
Yeah.
Two things that like came out of the book that I recognized. They were very, I don't know if you meant them to be subtle or if you knew that you were doing it or if it was intentional, but there's two huge things that are sprinkled throughout this book from the beginning to the end.
Okay, I like this. All
right.
This is
and
new.
like this is one of the reasons why it's going on the website.
Okay.
All right. It's going to go under art form.
Okay.
Art practice, the art of travel. You bring up the importance of being green conscious, earth conscious, not leaving like a big footprint, and you talk a lot about meditation.
Yeah, which that's why you got me here today. Kind of, sort of, but yours is yeah. And I think two things. I thought I live far away, and a lot of these things that, knowing kind of what you were going to ask, I was kind of thinking of some responses, and I know those are two of the big things about the book. Is the mental aspect of it, but also the rule in there called the Emerald Rule. that was just a phrase I created. I wanted something. I wanted to be marketable, and I wanted something people remember. And everybody knows the golden rule, but I wanted to market Emerald with my last name being green. I wanted to, hey, let's just focus on leaving places better than you found them. And it's such a problem. Over tourism is such a problem, and it's not totally a bad thing if people want to go see your place, but it does. We have to be aware of it.
Yeah,
and
it does wreak havoc.
But it's changed me in so many ways. Travel has done that. I talk about the importance of meditation. I say travel gives you opportunities to do both things on the spectrum. Gives you opportunity to think all the time that you're going to have to yourself. You can think about all your problems, your solutions, your ideas, your goals, but also gives you time to not think, where you should meditate. And that I've been able to take with me out of travel, but both in my daily life. When you're waiting in line at an airport and you're not going anywhere, right? And you just sit and meditate your mantra, and inhale love to my heart, inhale peace to my mind. And those are things I brought back into my daily life, and those are things I say every day now. And anytime I'm stuck in an Albertsons or Safeway in a line, I get a line, cool. And just mantra real quick.
Yeah.
And then as far as and then the second you asked about having a green focus, it's the biggest problem our future is going to have. Biggest problem Earth has.
Yeah.
Biggest problem our society has, and it's. Yeah.
And we're still talking about it. We're still debating it.
Yeah. I turned my phone over, but I wanted to show you a tweet that, in regards to that subject, I'll find it real quick. I'll try to filibuster as I am looking it up. It was Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about with the footage last week of the black hole. And everybody was like, oh, it's so cool. It's great. A woman did it, and this is wonderful, and science is great. But yet, we love that, but yet we still have our debates about the rest of it.
Yeah.
Like, how can we say, oh, that's amazing, but yet still trying to filibuster. I have to, as I'm scrolling through all my likes.
There's also some people that are like now starting to bring back the whole flat Earth. Like, I thought we were over that a couple hundred years ago.
I think they're just trolling it, though. I don't. They can't possibly be.
There's some people that I wouldn't doubt it. Speaking as a former member of like crazy aluminum hat, the Aluminum Hat Society, like. You can talk yourself into pretty much anything.
You can. This is what Neil tweeted on April 10th. Scientists, we produced the first ever image of a supermassive black hole 55 million light years away. Response, people say, ooh. Next paragraph. Scientists, we've concluded that humans are catastrophically warming the Earth. Response. This is what he says most people respond with. That conflicts with what I want to be true, so it must be false. It's like, how do we how do we appreciate certain sciences and then...
I still, everybody that out there, all of you listeners, all of my friends that have children, like, Odin blesses you, and I'm glad that you're happy, but, and that's why I just do it for me. It's just, I can't justify it, like, the ego desire and need to, live beyond my life through name and blood. Like, I can't fucking justify it. Like, oh, I want this. Is it good for everybody else around? But I want it.
It's normal.
It is normal. It is normal, but like sooner or later.
Yeah, they're just
going to become food for some warlord.
It's, I mentioned there the
sorry.
No. The amount of tourists from China, I wrote about in there how their percentage of people that have passports is way lower than people from United States, from Europe, and once they catch up, as far as having more people there's not going to be room for all these tourists in different places. You go to any place, which quick segue, Notre Dame happened as we're taping this a week ago. That is my favorite building on the planet. And I want to not affiliate it with the religion, just as a building, not as a cathedral, as a church, but it's my favorite building on the planet. And the best thing about seeing Paris, and that bothered me this week. But when you go to places like that, they're just filled, and a lot of places don't let a certain amount of tourists in at one time, and there's all these things, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to be more. Over tourism is going to happen, and it's unfortunate because it's the popular places become over, obviously are have the over tourism. So it's a weird cycle how that happens.
Do you find in your study, are there more places that are starting to pop up, like new places that are like, is there trendy travel places that are naturally beautiful or historically beautiful?
I think places that are specifically along the lines of maybe beaches and exotic areas.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of you just keep moving down, almost like in the suburb of the beach. There's you go Puerto Vallarta, you go down there's Nueva Vallarta, and there's the next area. You just kind of keep pushing up the beach, and I think that is okay. But some of the places that are more urban, Venice and like places like Notre Dame, there's no expansion of that. You could theoretically go to the next church over or the next iconic building over, but I think it's easier to do places like beaches and outdoor tropical places. But
there's one thing that you said in a conversation with me. I think it was after The Last Jedi.
I remember this. Yeah.
Was it? No, I think it was after Solo, because it was the beginning of the summer.
Which is part of the reason I added Smart in front of the book, because initially it was calling the book Solo, and then the movie came out and totally. And then Demi Lovato has a song out called Solo, and I'm like, well, I better change it to Smart and Solo. So,
well, this conversation has to do with being smart. You're like, we were still trying to like figure out when we were going to get together, and you're like, well, if I go anywhere, it will be in the States. It's easier to travel around the United States in the summertime because all the Americans are gone, because everybody's overseas. It was something like that that you said.
Yeah. In fact, I know a question you're going to ask. What's my next trip? But my trips this summer are all domestic. Nothing. And plus, prices are higher. Prices are way higher on everything.
For overseas?
Yeah, flights. Flights are double.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
So I don't spit into the wind. I take what, and I'll just do my domestic stuff, knock that out. Still pursuing the baseball stuff, and then I'll do my Europe when it's colder and more affordable.
That's so awesome that you're like, oh, fuck it. Like, I mean, it's such an excuse to like wear your jackets and scarves.
Yeah, and my big thing is I use a phrase in there that's a football phrase is take what the defense gives you. You don't try to force the issue. And if I want to go to some place and the price is abnormally high, I just don't go. I'll go somewhere else. There's plenty. I want to go everywhere. So it's not like it's not my second choice that is not good. No, I have 200 choices. They're all equal.
Yeah.
So I always just go to what's more. And how do I know what the price is? Well, because I look 5 times a day at different locations and daydream all the time as far as trips. I'm already daydreaming a trip, for December. So I'm already looking at prices now. And that way, when you go back and look and actually ready to buy the ticket, you're like, well, this is either higher or lower. If it's too high, I'm just not going to go. And that basically means in the summer anything international from Arizona.
It's funny too, because like you were also looking up and you said like, hey, the day of the week can change the price. I wasn't aware of that one. I mean, I know the day of the week that you travel is going to be different, but like knowing that the day that you look at the listing,
and even more. And first, I want to preface it by saying I have not solved the algorithm as far as that they all use, but I have on some days looked at a flight on a Tuesday morning, or just arbitrarily picking Tuesday, and then Tuesday afternoon, it's higher or lower. It changes, and I know some people say it's in your internet search history, which maybe not, but they have their own system, and I mean there's some of the weirdest trips. Like, let's say I want to go from London to Munich, and nonstop is 200, but if I go via Portugal, I can get it for 100. But if I wanted to go to Portugal just from London on its own, it's 200. So none of it makes sense. Like, if I go out of my way to stop at Portugal, then it's cheaper. But if I wanted to go to Portugal on my own, it's not. So I use that to kind of, if I want to go someplace extra, that's how I just build in the layovers. But yeah, there's what I found, there's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there is. Like why is this going to be cheaper?
I don't know. And
because it's inconvenient to you, the traveler.
Well, the smaller countries do it so you visit them, which up until a month ago was kind of common practice. But the biggest one of them, the one who made their name, who I flew on a year ago, WOW Airlines. If you were leaving New York to go to Europe, they wanted you to fly on WOW Airlines, so they would have a low fare, but they'd stop in their home country of Iceland. So everybody's like, cool, I get to stop in Iceland. I've been to Iceland 4 times, right?
Vikings.
Because of that. Yeah. And it's a wonderful place. But that airline just kind of went kaput. They're not bankrupt and all that, but they stopped, they ceased, and just people who, in the middle of the night, they just ceased. Like, people were on their way back and they had no flights, nothing.
What?
Yeah, this was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Not even a warning.
No. They wouldn't do the warning because they want you to keep paying. And it's not the first time it happened. A year ago, another one did it. So these ones that do these affordable flights to get you to go out of your way kind of backfired on WOW. So I don't know if this practice will continue, but it's all cyclical too. I mean,
So with more people on the planet, do you think that like travel expenses are going to go up or down?
both, because one thing that is pretty consistent when it comes to travel is the places that are less visited are higher priced. You want to go from New York, and I always say out of New York or Boston, because you don't, I mean, those who are Arizona listeners, don't book your flights out of Arizona. Yes, you need to fly book it out as a separate flight, because there's a $200, $300 extra if you fly out of Phoenix. But if you book it separate, it's okay. So what I do is I'll fly to New York, Boston, something like that, Chicago, and then go. Phoenix is just not.
So wait, how do you do that? How do you get out of here then?
No, I still do a flight, but
Are
I
you
don't.
talking an international flight?
Yeah, the international flight, I don't start it from Phoenix. So I'll book a domestic flight to New York, whatever the most affordable one I can do, and then I'll book my international flight from New York across or Boston across. I won't book my international flight from Phoenix.
It's just way too much.
Way too much.
What's the difference? Like thousands or just hundreds?
It can go up to thousands, but it's I'd say on average the minimum is usually 200-300 tacked on. Phoenix is just not. You can fly out of LA, but Phoenix is just not it. And there's very few cities that are. The only ones are New York, Boston, Chicago, LA, San Francisco. Seattle gets a few, but if you want to go from New York to Rome, prices are going to be pretty low. But if you want to go from New York to, you're like, man, I want to do something different. I want to go to Croatia. They're higher. Mm-hmm. So those prices are higher just because there's fewer flights. That's the big thing about it. It's all about how many flights are. So if prices are going to increase and decrease, if there are more flights and more options. That's why Europe tends to be cheaper. I don't like using the word cheaper, more affordable, because you have options. Mm-hmm. You're in London and you want to fly to wherever, and you don't like the price of the plane, you can take a train. We don't have that option here on the West Coast. East Coast we do. And that's why you see that accordingly with flights. The same thing going to South America. No trains in South America. Mm-hmm. Southeast Asia, a lot like that too. So and Africa as well. You're not going to have that. The prices tend to be higher because you don't have an alternative. You take a car in those areas and you're going 40 miles an hour up and down winding roads. So
back to the kids. You did like you were talking to like high school students?
Yes. Talked to three classes.
Did you have the opportunity to like not only talk about being like authoring a book, but your personal philosophy of the importance of travel? Did you get to talk to them about that?
Superficially. I didn't go too in depth on it. I only had a short amount of time, and I wanted to direct them in an activity, so I gave them the 16 personalities quiz. So it's the Myers-Briggs, watered down version of Myers-Briggs, and wanted them to kind of get in that. Most of them hadn't heard about it, and I wanted them to just, because I was like, hey, in career advice, listen, I've got multiple degrees, but maybe it's not for you. Maybe college is not for you. So let's first find out what your thinking is, what type of person you are, and then you'll know what type of workplace you might be in, what type of coworkers, and so forth. So I did that, and then based on time, we ran out. But so superficially talked about why travel is important. But it was more so career than it was recreation.
Do you have a process or a ritual in the beginning of writing? Not even just writing this book, but like each time you sat down, did you have a ritual before you start the practice of writing? And second part of that question is, how much time did it take to unplug yourself, get your brain to calm down after you were done writing? So first part, did you have a ritual for writing?
My main ritual, I'm a big dreamer. I daydream all day, so that's ritual number one. It's just honestly, is just that now with writing as a goal. Again, if I'm not meditating, I'm thinking, I could put this, I could do that, and just brainstorming all day. So that's ritual number one. Ritual number two is just not caring about any spelling or grammatical error at all. Like if you look at my first drafts, 80% of words are misspelled because I'm just going. Like I don't care. Mm-hmm. I know what it says, and I'm not worried about that. That's kind of the main ritual.
Is there any like mute? But like when I mean like ritual, do you have like certain music set playlist you want to listen to? Because I have certain incense that I light, and it's not the one that you're smelling right now. And it's not even the 420 kind of incense either, right? It's like a certain kind that like it's Moldavite incense.
Listeners, by the way, I wasn't sure which of his houses which apartment number it was, and as I was walking up, I double checked that it was the right apartment number, but then I smelled the incense, and I'm like,
I had a stick sitting burning.
By the way, he's
you need to send that to me. That's amazing.
I just showed him a meme in response to today's holiday, and I don't partake in today's holiday, but our host may have in the past, and it's just a meme of the difference between 4:19 p.m. and 4:20 p.m. and it's based on Forrest Whitaker's eyes. So you can imagine what that may look like. So I'm gonna send this over to you as well.
Shit, that's amazing. Yeah, I don't participate anymore. I'm a big supporter of the cause. Just
How quickly that changed, by the way.
I'm like just like I'm like the worst stoner. I'm like the laziest stoner because like I don't have time to do it.
It's amazing now though how normal it is, and you're trying to explain to like my mom about it, and it's like, this is normal. You can get flavors and types and all these things. It's incredible. 20 years ago, if we would have said this was the case,
yeah,
are you kidding?
But then you go back 40 years ago, and it was totally okay.
Well, but you go back 50 and it was demonized. So it's interesting. So it's I don't think it's going to be cyclical. I don't think we're going to come back to a point where it's not. But it's just funny how normal it is.
Yeah.
And you respond to your question about unplugging and rituals. First of all, to preface it, as far as needing to be unplugged, I never really plugged. What I mean by that is, I'm pretty adaptable to all situations. I'm pretty calm, pretty chill most times. So I don't ever get to where like I gotta separate. In the past, I would go for walks if I needed to, but those served as both relax but also brainstorming times. And as far as music goes and all that, I stay pretty chilled for the most part. I do have a kind of indie playlist that I like, things like Metric, The Kills, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, that I'll go even a little nerdy with my family opera. Lately it's been the Beatles, but I will say that when I do need an unplugged time when I get out of work, after playing music for 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
After, I'm probably, the only...
You're dealing with a lot of energy.
A lot of energy. So on my drive home, there's no hip-hop, there's no house music. It's something relaxed and enjoy. A lot of podcasts as well. Yours, Be Rated, of course, top 2 podcasts on iTunes. Make sure to leave a review if you can, and you find them on Stitcher or any availability that you get your podcast from. And then just Game of Thrones podcasts and things like that as well.
Right on.
And sports as well.
So I started chapter 16 this week. I got 16, 17 epilogue.
Okay.
All right. So I work till like 5 o'clock. I go to the gym. I get home. I got to eat dinner, take a shower. And then I sit down and I just stare at the screen for about an hour. And then it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah. So you sound like what I've done as well.
And so like I'll write for about an hour, hour and a half, sometimes more. And then when I'm done, I'm like, okay, like I just give myself sections. Like I'm going to do this part of this. I'm not going to try to like crush an entire chapter. To do the section. But when I'm done, like we're talking like another hour, hour and a half before my brain will allow me to do the process that I need to do to turn it off.
So it's very comparable to how I write as well. But in saying that, I don't think the way I do it and the way you do it, I don't think it's the most efficient by waiting. Sure, it does take time to get creative, and we have to since it is a luxury to write, we have to take care of everything else first. So a lot of times it does get pushed to the back of the day. But that's what I did the first 11 months. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I said, no, I'm not going to wait till I'm 9 o'clock and done everything else and push it off. And I realized I had to just do it. I think it's the easiest route to do that, to say, let me do all this, let me wait for inspiration. But there was another quote, I think it's by Teddy Roosevelt. He mentions, sometimes we have to let inspiration hit us, and other times you have to go after it with a stick. Mm-hmm. So you can't always sit around and just wait for those writing vibes to hit you and waiting at the end of the day. Sometimes you just say, you know what, I'm just going to write. As you write, you get more ideas. And it's a snowball. It gets going. And then you change things and everything. So I would just encourage you to,
I think
to
like
start a little earlier in the day.
I think, I have to go to the gym.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
first thing, yeah.
I wish I could get up even earlier and go to the gym. That's just not the way I operate.
I'd say just.
But like I think that like the way that I do it proves that you can do it if you have a 40-hour week job.
True. I think it's the most common. The most common thing is, let me do everything else and let me write, because it is a luxury. It's I have my regular job, and you do that at the end, and like you said, you got to do the gym and all that, but it's probably just not.
Got to do something to maintain that donut habit. You know what I mean?
Hey. By the way, I think since the last time I had been here. When you mentioned donuts, I just instantly think of Portland now. So Voodoo Donuts. So
we were there. We looked at the line. We're like, fuck that.
I stayed in line. The only hard part is no debit card.
That's
you
bullshit.
Pay cash. I know. Who carries cash? But Yeah, it's the most common way to write. But I would encourage you, not telling you to change, I would just encourage you to find more times to not wait for the last thing of the day. Because that's, I think, why you also can't wait to be ready to write. I think we wait and we say, I'm not feeling it. My brain's not there yet. If you do that, you'll never be there. Your brain will never be there. On a whole, like you might knock out a page or two a day, but as far as reaching your next March deadline.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm almost there. I could feel the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's the best. That's the best. That's the best.
What did it feel like when you were done? And I do want to ask you some like editorial questions because I think that or publishing questions. I think that's beneficial for the audience members.
Disappointingly enough, when I completed it, I didn't feel anything.
Oh fuck! No.
I don't have an answer for that. People ask me, especially after I had it in my hands. People were like, "Oh my gosh, how's it feel?" And even my mom, I was like,
sense of accomplishment.
I'm gonna go off on a tangent here for you. Okay?
You just went to your list and you went, "I'm done with that. What's next?"
True, I did, and I was somewhat disappointed that I didn't feel any better. Like I was a little bit down. Like I was hoping, it's not like graduating college. You'd think you told your whole life, go to college, and then streets are made with gold after that, and it's not like that. And after you graduate, you're like, that's it? I'm going to give you a weird analogy here on how I feel after it, because this is what I explained to my mom. Whether it's true or not, who knows? But I said, I don't feel any different. And she was kind of bummed. She's, she was proud, and she wanted me to be proud with it. So in Free Solo, the girlfriend asked him, do you think maybe, perhaps, kind of, sort of, you might be more careful because of me being in your life? And he looked at her with those empty black eyes that he had, those real dark eyes, right? And I related to him in a lot of ways, by the way. And he looked to her and he said no. Now, just relationship advice to anyone: even if that's how you feel, don't tell your girlfriend that, okay? But he said no because I'm already as prepared as can be. So for me, I didn't feel any fulfilled or any different because I'm already as fulfilled as I can be. Like I'm already, over the last year, maybe in the process of writing this book, in the process of traveling, I used to say things like, I'll be happy when I finish the book, or I'll be happy when I finish school, I'll be happy when I do this. But over the last year, I said, no, that's dumb. I'm happy now. Mm-hmm. And I think by telling myself that, it changes everything. So I'm happy every day. Every day is the best day of my life. I have reminders to tell myself that on my phone. Today's been the greatest day of my life. And yesterday was the greatest day before that. And when I go to bed, I say to myself, I have everything I want, everything I need. Because of having that feeling all the time, the book didn't change me one bit. So in some ways I was disappointed, but at the same time, like, I'm already content and happy.
Were you at least content and happy knowing that you have a new project to start?
It's a lot. It's shamefully, it's next.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
I know, but I think if anything, I could learn to appreciate it more. But I'm happy. Like I'm. But
if you appreciate it, you can't force yourself to appreciate more than appreciation.
I didn't feel any different. I wish I did. I wish I could tell you that I felt a load off my back or whatever. But I'm.
He got on his computer. He went into his file, one of his many Excel files, mm-hmm. the one that says bucket list, and he put a mark next to nonfiction travel, because he's probably got other books, book ideas. And
I know he's saying that in theory, but he's almost
no.
he's almost very accurate. I mentioned this last time I was here. I do have a Microsoft Excel sheet, and I highlight, and it's under I have them by quarterly goals. I have a certain amount of quarterly goals, and they could be superficial. They could also be heavier things. It could be amount of books I read, but underneath the life goals section, I don't like the word bucket list. I refuse to
goals.
I use life goals. I've never liked the term bucket list. So I have life goals, and yes, once I finished it, once I had this in my hand, I went over there and I highlighted in yellow, and then I looked at the other 149 things that I hadn't finished, and I said, all right, let's get to work on. So underneath it was publish a fiction work. So that's now the goal for the rest of this year. Get a novel.
Do you already have a story?
Mm-hmm.
Is it? Can we get like genre?
Ooh, it is a
young adult romance.
Shame on me because I had so many jokes I wanted to say there, but I couldn't think of a quality one to use. But it is a Western along the lines of Cormac McCarthy meets the show Narcos meets with the underlying theme of the political battle of immigration right now. So it is a set in southwestern Arizona.
Is this the beginning of a series?
It's wherever it goes, I think the beauty of it, right? The beauty of it, right, is that once you finish it as a novel, you can just copy and paste, put it in your screenplay or whatever it may be. But I wanted it to underlie the political themes of immigration, which are not going to change. It's such a hot topic now, and it won't. But I want to paint it along the lines of, if you ever saw The Wire, how The Wire painted them as equals, like the drug groups and the cops. There were good and bad on both. And not necessarily advocating one or the other, just telling the stories. And I want it to be like that. I want to talk about how, the people who are being smuggled across, like, they're not doing it to steal all your stuff. They're doing it because they have no other option.
Yeah.
So it literally is life or death. And I don't want to take sides or anything. I just want to present a story along those lines. So,
right on. Publishing. What you went the Amazon route?
I did.
Do you have, first of all, how does that work? And second of all, because I think this is good information for young writers out there. Second of all, you still retain control over it. So if you wanted to publish it another route or in like a second edition, you can do that, correct?
Yes, through Amazon, it's just simple. There's a couple different routes to do it though, but the actual part of Amazon, you just upload it, and then they take a percentage of your sales. There's no fee to upload it. However, there's a fee for the ISBN number, and the ISBN number allows you to make separate editions down the road and everything. And the ISBN allows you that if one day the entity that you uploaded it with, Amazon, but it's not always Amazon, it could be someone else. If they ever went underneath business, your book could be gone. So the ISBN at least gives you some backup on that. It was very...
Do you have to go to another... Where do you have to go to get the ISBN?
But Amazon's great because they link you to it. There was just a link to it. So the actual Amazon part was fairly easy in a lot of senses, but until the hard part I'll explain in a second. But as far as when I actually uploaded the final draft, I did it I texted you right after I did it, and the ebook was up in 2 hours, and the paperback was up 4 hours. And then I get a percentage of books sold. The only fine print thing that I would tell people is when they tell you what percentage you're receiving, you get different percentages for the paperback and the ebook, is what they don't tell you. And I was a little disappointed. My profits declined when I saw this, but you got to pay for your printing. So when you print the book, you have to every book printed you are selling, or you're paying for the cost of the printing, which it's rough when you do that. It's $4 to print a book. So
okay.
But the actual.
So if the book was like what? It was like 1995, wasn't it something like that?
12. Oh, no, $12.99.
$12.99.
Yeah,
$12.99 for the book. 4 of that goes to printing, and then a percentage.
Yeah,
I think the percentage of what's left over.
No, it's the start. So it's something like 70%. There's a couple different ranges, a couple different things. So that number can fluctuate, but you receive that, and then they take the printing out of it. So you get that money first, and then print it. So it does drop your profits real quick, but that can be a little disappointing. But the process is great. I don't tell anyone that it's self-published, because what does a publishing company do? They print, they pay for printing, they pay for promotion, distribution, all the above. Well, I'm doing all that. Self-publishing, I feel by saying it's self-published, it almost undersells it. Like, no. Instead of self-publishing it, you know what I did? I started a
publishing company.
The things that we do now, compared to 20 years ago, come on. The ability to market this book, to email people. I did an interview with a local newspaper in Barnsley, England, because that's where my family's from. That's what a publishing company does. Put those out there and go into different places, going to schools to talk. So it's...
Did you have to get an what is it for?
No, but you do say
for the publishing company.
You do come up with you got to have a name. Some people can put Randall Green Books or whatever, but I elected to take. I named my publishing company, and I also I'm going to publish another book. So I'm gonna
why not?
Yeah, and I could publish your book under this. I technically could. I could pay for it and do it, right? That's how publishers start. This is no different than what they did, To Kill a Mockingbird back in the day. No different. In fact, we actually have a higher technology, better way to reach people. So I named it. I took my 2 favorite books, The Road and The Nightingale, and I just called my publishing company Nightingale Road Literature. The hardest part of it, there's also there's 2 routes you can go. You can do all the editing yourself, and you can do the design all yourself, or you can pay, and some companies will just kind of gift wrap the whole thing for you. They'll pay for, then their name will be on it. You're still self-publishing it, but they'll do the editing, they'll do the design, they'll just kind of pretty it up and do all the things that I'm doing, but you got to pay a fee to do it.
And where do they put their name on it?
It'll just be, it'd be there or whatever. Most of it still would say, your name, everything. There'll just be little things in the corner or whatever.
They'll say edited by this.
Everything's still in your thing, but they're taking it like I know a person who did it, who the editing part was the hardest part of this book. The editing.
So when you're talking about editing, is it actual like the literature editing or the design editing?
Both equally hard. When you can pay a company. The person I know who did it paid $5,000 to do it. They edited it, and then they did all the format. Now the format for me was the hardest part. That's where I was almost in tears. I was at Sip Coffee and I tried to upload it, and I because in my book there are things like this, like the text box.
Yeah. They
don't transfer from a doc to a PDF, and sometimes it just does it. And then when you upload it on Amazon, it's a KDP file, which is like Kindle book publishing. So all the formats can get screwy. And I went through it so many different times, and every time, all these little boxes I had that were in the corner, every picture I put offset some of the words, and it was a nightmare. But I learned it. Now I could do it quick. I could do it easy. But the first time through was very difficult. And then
now you could charge people when they need help.
Yeah,
and they can.
But I think of it too. I think about it for every future career interview. They're going to ask questions. Describe your work independently. I'm like, I worked independently for a year. Describe. This. Not only did I write this, but I was the editor, designer, marketing.
I definitely am looking into having somebody edit the book for me, but not the design.
Send it my way.
Well,
and I must say that editing the big phase, it was done in here, mentioned by M. Alice Brown. No relation to you.
With an E, or is that?
No. Same spelling as yours.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And M. Alice Brown is my mom, so she did it. I didn't want to put.
I knew that when I read it, and I was all like, "What's up with the color? What's up with the color scheme?"
Well, so her last name is Brown, and like I mentioned before, my sister's new last name is White, so it's kind of all screwy. But I didn't want to put in their green. I didn't want anybody to associate it, number 2 and 2. And then she's super shy, and so she didn't necessarily want her name. I go, okay, let's get all F. Scott Fitzgerald and call you M. Alice Brown. So she did it, and the reason I had my mom do it, not because of family ties, because she's the only person I know who reads more than me, and the only person I know who, when she reads a book, I'll pick up her books, and I'm reading through one of her books. One of her favorite authors is Dick Francis, a big British author, and I'm looking, and she makes editing marks in his books, and I'm like, what is this, Mom? She goes, oh, he used the wrong tense of that verb. I'm like, maybe that's where I get my list and everything from. So that's why I had her. That's why I had her do the editing. So she'll do it. She'll gladly do it. You don't need to pay $5,000. She'll do it for her.
You only need 2 more colors, and I think you can have a bank robbing crew.
Yeah, and that's I won't go down the segue of how excited I am for his movie. By the way. Yeah.
Like, what did you learn most about yourself in writing this?
That I could do it.
That you can do it.
Yeah. That's the thing I kept telling myself many times. You can do hard things. You've done hard things. You can do this. And once you do it, it's just like no other way. I'm disappointed I didn't have like an immense sense of satisfaction, but at the same time, I do have that. Like I can do this. I'm a writer, and it's actually not bad. When I think the best satisfaction or the best thing I learned is when I actually picked it up and looked at it, and I was like, this actually looks like a real book. Like
it is.
I learned that about myself, and I learned that I like doing it. More importantly.
Yeah.
I loved it. That it was that I'll never go back to a regular career because I need to write, and it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's challenging.
The thing that I've learned the most about mine, the book that I'm writing, is that like it is a journey itself.
Oh yeah.
Like we're so used to these physical constructs, an idea of travel and moving and seeing new things. Well, everything that you're seeing when you're writing is inside. You have to go inward to like pull it out into the world, and you're a different person from the first word to the last word.
Yeah, and I think George R. Martin, when there was that his initial pitch for the book 1, and he was writing the premise for Game of Thrones and everything. He goes, I don't know how it's going to finish, or I don't know exactly how it's going to go. And that struck a chord with me. It's just like, that's one of the best things about writing is the big fear is I don't know where this is going. But that's also the best thing about it is I don't know where it's going. Let's see where it goes. So when you just get in there and go, things happen. And as you're writing, other things come out of nowhere, other ideas.
What are, besides, I would say the one that you're writing is kind of like a thriller?
Perhaps. Thriller seems like not the right term, but
it's not really it's fiction.
Yeah.
It's fiction, but it's got thriller like elements to it.
Yeah, there'll be thrilling elements. I think more just dramatic.
Yeah.
Hopefully dark.
What are what are some of the other genres you'd like to tackle?
Historical fiction.
I'm proud of you, dude.
Thank you.
It was cool.
Well, you mentioned. Let me flip a question on you. You mentioned as we talk, we text, and again, you were one of the first people I texted. I want to let you know because, again, it's one thing to say I'm writing a book.
I know where I was. It was after work.
This is good. No, this is great. Yeah.
I was working out and I was doing cardio and I was like, I was so happy, but then I was like, fuck! I thought he was like on the same pace as I was.
So you mentioned after we texted, and you said there was a couple of things that you underlined, and that made me very happy and proud. And
well, you know what? Here's my rule. Like now, when I go to highlight things, like I have to fucking. If I don't have my highlighter, I'm not gonna do it.
Well, trust me, the markers that I use on my editing phase are put in a Ziploc bag, and they're not being used until the next marketing. So,
you know what's funny is that like when I go from one because I do different drafts. I do like two. I was doing like 4 drafts before I would move to a chapter, and then even after that, once it was all done, I was gonna do one final draft where I like go through the whole manuscript, make sure all the threads are there.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing like 2 drafts before I move on. But when I go when I do the next draft, I just like save as. But then I draft 1 black, draft 2, and whatever color I'm going to use.
Yeah.
That way it separates.
I did something like that too. I had my initial draft, and anytime I moved over an idea to the final, I did it in green. And if it was just to let me know what I've used and what I haven't. Yeah, there's definitely. So what were some of the things that you highlighted?
Okay, so this is one thing. Create a separate email exclusively for travel and sign up for updates on sales from travel companies. I would have never even thought of that.
I would tell anyone to do that with
I thought that was fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I would tell anyone to do that in any aspect of their life. Let's say you're someone who's going to apply for new careers, create a separate email just for that. Because the problem when you do this is they all sell your emails to everything else. So you get so many, you just get inundated by emails.
Another thing that you brought up, I didn't highlight it, but I remembered it because you brought it up a few times and it was near the end of the book. That have like a cheat sheet that isn't on your phone in case something happens to your phone, and it's something that you keep on your person that has like phone numbers and all that stuff. Another thing is that you either do a screenshot or you give somebody at home your itinerary, contact information, and maybe even email them once in a while. So especially when you're traveling overseas, so that people know. It's just like a safety precaution of somebody who's traveling by themselves. I thought that was fucking.
Well, that's always a big question I get is safety when you're by yourself when you're traveling solo, and especially along the lines of women's safety. And they go hand in hand. Though. You should do the same thing. You should always have an information card kind of on you in some way, shape, or form, with just the basic information, just in case something happens, in case you lose your phone, and then. In hoping that you don't ever lose your phone, take a screenshot of everything. Take a screenshot of your passport, your debit cards, all that stuff. Send it to some, store it somewhere. A big part of that is also to send people back home, but also when you're wandering around Budapest and your Wi-Fi is not working, which is going to happen all the time. You can't rely on your map, your app, or whatever it is. So you have to use screenshots. Use screenshots as much as you can. Take a picture of your luggage, all of it. That way, when you go and you go to pick up your luggage, that was lost somewhere, they're like, "What does it look like?" "Oh, it was black." "Okay, cool. Well, here's a picture of it."
So I'm just going to read some stuff that I've just found, and a lot of it is just like your thoughts. It's more of like philosophy.
Well, the first chapter is the only chapter that's about me, and the rest was about just travel.
But I still I liked some of it. I liked some of it. So, and that's just where I flipped through. So I'm going to read a couple of these.
No one's read aloud my book before. This is the first. Okay.
Movement is an education, and it's enjoyable. Why else do infants immediately run away when given the chance? The freedom, thrill, and potential discoveries that await are permeated deep into our lives before we are cognizant of it happening. Like I was back in like Parks and Rec, and like the first graders were just going ape shit. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not even the infant, but like that was just like I saw it. I saw my friends with their kids, and like I remembered myself as a child, and I was holy shit. Yeah, that's why we always wanted to do we're learning machines.
As far as the parts that I'm most proud of, the first couple chapters I'm most proud of, and ironically, they were the last ones I wrote because I was pushing them off. But then it's great because I've come up with a kind of a summary, as elevator speech on why travel's great. And travel gives us all three things. Number one, it gives us an education. That's the easy part. You learn no matter where you go. That's easy. Everywhere you go, the store, Europe, wherever. It gives you adventure. Number two, and adventure means fun. You have a good time. So again, as that little kid walking around, they're learning, they're exploring the world, but also they're having fun. But the third is the most important. And do you remember what that was?
I'd have to go back and look.
The third and probably the most important thing about travel, why it's so great, is it gives us opportunity. You don't know what's on that horizon. Across that horizon, for a sailor, could be riches, could be a new world, could be safety. If you're having from a place of conflict. It could be a job opportunity. You never know what's around that horizon. So travel gives you education, adventure, and opportunity, and that's why it's so great, and that's why you should do it, and that's why everybody should do it.
Something that one more thing that you wrote in here, because you just said something about like writing style that I want to talk about. Society has often created an image that introverts are weaker than their more gregarious counterparts. This couldn't be farther from the truth. To me, when I read that, like I was like, that's so fucking important for an introvert to like read. Yeah. Like just that sentence, like.
And then I quote Susan Cain, who wrote the book Quiet, and she just mentions so many great thinkers are introverted, and society does put it that you got to be gregarious and happy and talk to everybody. But first of all, we all have elements of both. When you talk about unplugging, everybody has to unplug and get away from people. But also, introverts need to be around other people. They just tend to be around other introverts. But it's just how we charge. And if you choose to read a book in your spare time, and you might classify you as an introvert, and that's not a bad thing. If you are introverted, travel is going to give you opportunities to be around other people, but it's also going to give you a lot of alone time. And then conversely, if you're an extrovert, you're going to have the opportunity to be around other people, but it's also going to give you the opportunity to enjoy
learn
by yourself.
Alone time. Yeah.
So we all have elements of both, and we change. And I think many humans progressively become less extroverted as they get older, despite it being this pinnacle of how we're all supposed to behave. The amount of friends you had at 19 compared to the amount of friends you have now, right? It's because when you're 19, 18, you just have all superficial friends. You want to meet everybody you can, and you're learning, exploring, and as you get older, you're like, yeah, people are weird, and I don't like them. But you also, those people who are introverted tend to have fewer but more impactful friends that are the highest level of friendship can be. And introverts, when they are traveling, don't need to tell someone else, like, oh my gosh, look at the Grand Canyon. An introvert's just like, hey, be quiet, I'm looking at the Grand Canyon. Introverts or extroverts might have to talk back and forth. Introverts just like, this is all right. And I think people tend to be slightly introverted when senses can overwhelm them. So if they go to the Grand Canyon or go see the Phantom of the Opera in London, and if they're moved to the point of tears just because of a song or a view, that doesn't happen to extroverts, because introverts soak up so much of senses much deeper.
I think sometimes like witnessing beauty, like awe, can transform. Yeah. Can transform an extrovert into an introvert, at least in that moment.
I agree, because there's not a need to. It's just to soak it up, and just instead of just saying, "Hey, will you look at the Grand Canyon?" It's like, no, actually, just look at it.
Just be in it.
Yeah, be in it.
So okay,
it's like our second reference on Tarantino, right? Where Uma Thurman's driving with Travolta, and she goes, "Don't you hate that?" And he goes, "What?" And he goes, "That feeling where you feel like you have to say something."
Uncomfortable. Yeah. George Mallory, you quoted him.
Yeah,
and I loved it. I was all like, "That's fucking why he's right." Like this is his. This was the first little hill of his Everest in your writing journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like George Mallory was asked, why do you want to hike Mount Everest? And Mallory, an avid mountaineer, intelligently and contemptuously responds with, because it's there. Each country's simple existence should be quite enough to necessitate a trip. I love that.
That's true. I go to weird places, and people are always like, why do you want to go there?
Fucking why not?
Because it's there. It's there, and I love it. And the most common question I get is, what's your favorite place? And I don't even like comparing, because, I don't want there to be a last place, because every place is amazing. Every place is amazing. Every place gives you those three things. You're going to learn something from every place you go. It's going to make you feel something every place you go. It's there.
Like, instead of asking, why do you want to go there? maybe ask, what is it about that place that calls you right now?
I think that's a great question. Yeah.
You mentioned that the first 2 chapters were the last thing you wrote. I realized way into my process, like more than halfway through, that I didn't have to write this in order.
Oh yeah, me too. The writer's block hits you when you think it has to be linear, and I'm so thankful for it. You don't have to write linear, and please don't.
Yeah, I had this young adult author on here, and she said, I always write the kissing and fighting parts first.
Cool, that's cool. That was my first thing too, is to write linear, but then it's just what came to me and what happened, and then as you write, one of the amazing things about writing too is that how the ideas change. And initially, my book was geared at introverts. It was going to be about how the introvert should travel solo. Then I thought to myself, well, you're going to alienate 50% of the people that exist. So book sales aren't going to be too great on that. So just things change. And yeah, not writing linear.
Are you still going to write a book about your baseball challenge?
I thought about that yesterday, actually. I thought that would be a fun book. I think I could do a Smart and Solo baseball.
That would be rad.
Yeah. So I just planned, like I said, this week, I just booked a trip to Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. So there'll be baseball parks 16 and 17. So.
Pittsburgh is a crazy place to drive into. What is next for you? It doesn't have to be a book. It could be travel. What's next besides those baseball? What's on the horizon?
Horizon travel will be baseball related this summer. Like I said, I kicked around some other ones, but it just seems like I'm going to stick with baseball. With the end of summer goal, having the novel finished. Europe will be in the fall, and then maybe like Belize, Colombia, Panama in the fall, in the winter as well.
Far out.
Got Belize in December.
Have you been to South America yet?
Costa Rica. So Central America, but that's the closest. That's next up. Oh, and I guess the other major goal is just becoming fluent in French. That's kind of a big project.
Right on.
Working on that.
Do you have Duolingo?
I do. It's referenced in the book, so I've been working on that. I'm not any good, but I decided to instead of kind of like the writing, whereas I was just writing, and I casually do Duolingo every day, and I decided, screw this, let's set a goal and let's just get it done. So I'm doing most of my focus on just finishing my writing projects, turning into making writing more of a career, and then continue to travel and continue to learn languages and continue to read.
The one thing that I really appreciate, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, is that like this isn't the typical book that I go to, and it was fucking fun. And it was the most important thing about it is it was informative, and there was so much shit that I learned, and you made it easy too. Like you have a huge appendix in the back. Throughout the book, you have websites that you can go through, different ways of how you can, how to research for your ticket prices. Ways to do it on the cheap, how to volunteer. You just have so much information in here that it's totally beneficial. I feel like this is something that you should, parents, give this to your child at high school graduation day.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. That'd be wonderful.
It's totally beneficial, and I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. And all the quotes are people I met throughout the travels, because I learned in my time as a football coach that if you say one thing to kids all the time, after a while they quit hearing it. So if I had to give different voices, so all the different interviews in there were people I've met along the way to give more backup on what I was saying. So that's what the interview's for. So hopefully, the same format will be all there. A lot of music references, and a lot of my chapter quotes were music related. Tom Morello quote and some of those in there. But did you like the facts? Or
it's one of those things like I have to go back and like read a couple times.
There's a section where I just put in each chapter had one fact, like one in however many trips is made by Soul Travel. I just wanted it to be. I want whoever reads this to be just worldly. I want them to know about the world. Yeah. And I know that giving a fact about the 3 landlocked countries, what
you pretty much, this book is like cheat codes for traveling.
That was the goal. That was the goal. So it's, and that, the cities listed on the front there are just the 20 most, or not 20, might be 20, the most visited cities in the world typically. And I just put Paris being my favorite, put that at the top. But so as I'm sitting here looking around, first I keep looking at your cat, and I'm just obsessed with cats and all that. But also I'm looking at your laptop, and you have the Rise sticker, and it reminded me of something that you and I did about 10 years ago.
That was before that.
You know where I'm going with this?
It was wasn't it called Hope?
Well, it might have been, but what the initial idea when we had the gathering was called Socrates Cafe.
Socrates Cafe,
It was a book by Christopher Phillips, Socrates Cafe. So you and I did that, and a few of us did it. I don't even remember who was there. I think Mike Sepulveda might have been there.
It was Katie Owens.
Katie Owens.
Mike Sepulveda, you and I.
That was it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we went to Deck Park and did that. And that inspired me, actually, on the recent travels.
I remember we put a drunk man who smelled like urine in Katie's car, and we drove him to some location.
And probably, I don't remember this happening, but probably this is what I said. I said, well, Katie, with all that, you're in trouble. I probably did some type of pun. But that was probably me, right? That was
you're like the king of dad jokes, and you're not even a father.
But it inspired me because I thought, down the road, 150 years from now, I'll be like, I've been to 200 countries. No one's going to care.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta try to make a difference. So in the book, I mentioned an organization called Chaussettes de Marjorie, which means socks of Marjorie. Marjorie's my mother's name. It's a organization I've started where I'm just now when I travel, I deliver socks to people in need. I wanted something that was small, that I could pack easily without having to worry about luggage weight and cost. And I wanted shirts at first, but that just a little bulky and everything. So now I just do these little small package of socks, like a 3-pack you buy at Albertsons. I always and the best thing about that is you can buy them anywhere. You can buy them CVS or wherever. And I did it here first. I did it here in Scottsdale, just outside the Albertsons. After I saw someone outside, and I came back and said, "Hey, you need some socks." And it was wintertime. Everybody needs socks, no matter where you are in the world. You need socks. And then I did it at Deck Park, and then I met a guy named Roy. He was from Wyoming, and I always just get their name, and I just kind of walk off. And I don't take pictures. I don't be the guy who's out there taking pictures and being like, "Hey, I gave away socks today." Like, nah. I'd rather have the story. So I've been listing their names, and maybe down the road I can make that a whole book of people that I've met. But I'm happy to say that now it is now international. So I did it. I got off the train station in Berlin, immediately getting out there, and I was excited. I'm like, okay, because train stations in Europe are the safe havens for a lot of people. Go there because they can, a lot of travelers, so they can get more money. And that's also just a common place. The weird thing about train stations, domestically here, but also internationally, is that anybody can go onto the platform, whereas at an airport you have to get past security. So like the train station in Budapest, there were people with mattresses on the platform, like sleeping. Mm-hmm. So it was, people who were displaced homes they don't really kick them out or anything. So anyway, I now make it a point I buy a pack of socks, and then I always buy one at a time, and I just replace it. So I got out there at Berlin, and I just went up to the guy, and I said, he didn't speak any English, I didn't speak any German, and I gave him the socks, and he kind of looked at me sideways, not trusting me at first, and then he said, I don't know what he said, and he doesn't know what I said, and I tried to get his name. He said his name.
Saying, is there heroin in this? Yeah. Are you trying to make me a mule?
Well, there was, and that's gonna be that's the podcast later down the road. But so I just gave it to him. So then I tried to ask his name. He said it, and I was just like, oh, okay. I'm like Randall, and pointed at him. He said his name, and I was just, okay, well. And then he looked at it, and he said, America. And I'm like, yeah, and that's a horrible German accent, but. So then I the next night when I got to London, I did it in Piccadilly. I went in and I bought a pair of socks. I don't buy one pair. I buy just like a pack of 3. You can buy them anywhere.
Yeah.
That's the best thing about it. And I just walked up, and Piccadilly Circus, there's people, displaced people everywhere. Hopefully that's a more important number. Instead of saying I've been to however many countries, I've given socks away to 3 countries or 30 or however many down the road.
And hopefully other people can just follow the idea and give something.
Next time I travel, you could donate a pair of socks and I'll give them out, or donate money to do that. And
well, just imagine you get the trade-off of the experience of the journey in this new country and discovering it. So the least you could do while you're there is help somebody in need, at the very least, by giving them
as I write about in there, minimalism, I'm not a full-fledged minimalist, but there's definitely minimalist aspects, and I don't need much anymore. And I just think if you can give it to someone else, it's just
Well, my book collection and action figure collection have destroyed my attempts at minimalism.
I know, I've heard you talk about that, but you just keep what keep what makes you happy. But
I just want Sharon to build an effigy of me and of the action figures and burn it in Burning Man. Smart and Solo, where do people find it, Randall?
Right now, just kind of most of the marketing is going to be on the Instagram. It's the quickest way to reach out and find me on there.
But where can you buy it?
Right now, it's on Amazon. The best thing about it is when people are like, well, how do I get it? I'm like, well, give me your phone real quick, because everybody's got Amazon on the one touch already set up, so you can just do that.
Right on. Smart and Solo, the blueprint for efficient and enjoyable solo travel.
Shout out to Nick Poole for helping me change the title. I had a different title, and he changed me at the last second. He said, he said it's too. We changed one of the words in there. So.
The first book by Randall Carlton Green.
First of 2019, and we'll see.
Go to Amazon.
Thank you.
Order your copy now. All right, that's it. That's this week's episode of the Rise Podcast, Inner Monologue. Thank you so much, Randall, for coming back and talking further about your book. I always love talking with that dude. We can fucking talk for hours. SmartandSoloTravel.com is coming soon. Until then, just go to his Instagram, which has the handle Smart and Solo. All right? Get his book. You can go to Amazon. Just type in Smart and Solo Travel, and you'll find it. It's a great read. If you love to travel, there's a lot of awesome and amazing tips in there. Please check it out.